Today's video, we're gonna talk about when to know when to add a negative keyword on Google Ads. When you should add it, when you shouldn't add it, the perfect time to add it. I'm gonna cover all those details in this video, given a lot of people are adding them way more aggressively than they need to. And it's blocking a lot of the profit from coming in on their ad account if they wouldn't have added so many here. Of course, people go and they add too few as well because there's no sweet spot on this thing, but more people are adding too many. And even when Google's not telling you that you have a blockage, you're still getting blockages in your account. I wanted to make a video specifically addressing this issue. There's a formula that I have at our advertising firm after managing hundreds of accounts that I found to guarantee results for our clients, what we're doing how long are we waiting before we add negative keywords to decide if we should actually, first of all, add it. And then similar to that, what is the potential impact of adding it, either adding it or not adding it, because there'll always be a downside to adding it as well as not adding it, because you're always going to get some blockage of some stuff that could bring you sales. So the question is, what's the cost-benefit analysis of adding that negative keyword and knowing what those are up front? In addition to that, ultimately you want to get a great return on Google Ads. The more negative keyword that you add, the less return overall you're going to get over time, because certain terms bring in sales and Google needs to optimize for certain terms and find out which part of the terms that you're bidding on will work ultimately, and then weeding out the rest. But when you add stuff that you're going to then use to block traffic, it's always going to cut some long-term potential out of what you're doing. So I'll go through all the details here so you know when to add a negative keyword. And also, given that you've only got so much money to spend before your ads need to make money, and so you should, in those type of situations, be adding them a little bit more aggressively compared to somebody who has more money. They are more concerned about long-term profit than short-term gain, which will always make more money in the long run when you don't worry about short-term gain so much at the beginning, generally speaking, because you can add less negative keywords up front. Less is always technically better in terms of more long-term gain. So I'll go over all those details and more. If you do not know who I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we get them a certain minimum lift in their profitability, basically in excess of the management fees that we charge. We are the only agency out there who offers any kind of similar guarantee, which should tell you something about the quality of the information on this particular video. So with that said, getting into the content here. Adding too many negative keywords is one of the main mistakes new advertisers make, okay? They add too many, so ultimately, let's say you're selling barn paint, okay? A lot of people are going to add the negative keyword barn to their account. Well, that logically makes sense at a surface level to add that as a negative keyword if you sell barn paint, because people mostly typing in barn are not going to be a customer. Two things can actually occur when you make that kind of decision for your account. One, people that are typing in barn paint might get blocked, or people that type in barn color ideas, the list goes on. There's that, but also on top of that, there may also be customers of people just typing in barn. Because if they're typing in barn, a lot of people want to know about their barns. They would buy barn paint. And the one miraculous thing about Google Ads' system, their algorithm that drives the ads, which is constantly trying to figure out which ads should show for what people to give them what they want, is it's very, very intelligent. It looks at thousands of data points in real time on the users and the context of what that user's doing. And when you advertise for a long time and you've built up years of data in your ad account, the algorithm ultimately is in a position to where they can understand of the person searching for that keyword barn by itself is profitable. And it might only be 1 or 2%, but they find it. And if you add barn as a negative keyword, you can block that 1% or 2% you would eventually got for the next 10 years because you were too rambunctious at the beginning. And for that type of keyword, by the way, in that situation I just showed you or explained, the key thing is that what Google also does is they track whether somebody's been to your website already. So for an e-commerce site where the average person isn't going to buy on their first visit to the site, which is true, somebody could type in barn that already been to your site, or in that situation, then you wouldn't want your ad to not show. You would want your ad to show for that person, because anything you do to get them to the site again is going to likely lead to a purchase. So in that case, you would want to show up for barn. So you block barn, which then cuts down on people in the future being able to find your site a little bit. That cuts on your long-term potential of your ad account at that point in time. So that's a reason why adding too many negative keywords can hurt you, and you're generally better off. The general thing to do with negative keywords is try to only add negative keywords that have nothing to do, at least for e-commerce, have nothing to do with what you're doing. So if they type in jet ski paint, well, you can add that as a negative because it's not going to logically affect you. But the stuff that's super close to what you're doing, you shouldn't add it. Now, if you're talking about actually lead generation campaigns, it's a different story because generally speaking, people either want what they want or they don't want it, and you're not going to ever get them if they don't decide right then and there. So you don't want them, if they're looking for a lawyer, you don't want to just type in lawyer and have your ad show. Probably. You want to for sure have them type in lawyer Dallas or lawyers near me to make it make sense financially, if you will. So with that said, if you add though too many negative keywords, it creates artificial blockages, even if Google doesn't say it. Because what a lot of people will do is they'll wait for Google's recommendations part of their account to tell them that they have negative keyword conflicts. That is, they added negative keywords to their account that block their certain keywords. I can tell you for a fact that you'll get blockages, even though Google won't say it, by adding too many negative keywords that are really quite close to the keywords that you're targeting at the end of the day. And not to say that you should ever add close ones, but that's inevitably going to happen, so to say. And there's another way that you could check if you have blockages, by the way, which is a keyword diagnosis report, which you can Google that. That'll tell you when you add negative keywords, did it block any keywords, which you legitimately want to do that anytime you add negative keywords to your account. And if you're not doing that, you should. We do it anytime we add negative keywords to our account in any substantial way. But in addition to that, sometimes though, you still have to add negative keywords that are going to be somewhat close to the keywords you're targeting just to be able to get a decent return for your account. And that is situations where people are typing in stuff like best, top. You have to though analyze what it is that the results you're getting from that in that situation. So I have a strategy called the single keyword weed out strategy. In that situation, what we do is, let's say we're selling Frisbees, like for Frisbee golf, where people play golf with Frisbees basically. And we want to know if we want people that type in top Frisbee golf Frisbees, we should be bidding on that keyword or not, or have our ad show up for that keyword or not, or search phrase or not. Okay, given that people that usually type in top Frisbee golf Frisbees are looking for like a top list, a site that reviews them, not looking to buy a Frisbee from our store. And so at that situation, what you do is you go into the search terms report of your account, and then you go all time search for anything with the word top in it. And then what you see the return on investment anytime anybody use top in with their search phrase somewhere. And then with that, you can kind of make a determination, should I add search terms in my negative keyword list that have top in it or not, if you will. So that's kind of like a better way to determine if you should add negative keywords that are close to your keywords or not, by looking at it on an aggregate level. What is terms like that doing, so I can get a lot more data, given that that individual term by itself won't have enough data to really tell you whether you should add it or not on a statistical basis. With that said, though, some of the search terms you see in your search terms report, you can actually see searched enough and you got enough clicks on that you can decide if it will be good to add that as a negative keyword just by looking at the data from that search phrase by itself. And if you're in that situation, I would recommend the following formula that we use at our agency to guarantee clients' results, not waste too much money, but also not cut off too much of our long-term potential of our account. And that is, if you're in the e-commerce space, selling things through a shopping cart, basically, if your search term has over 1,000 clicks and no conversions, that is sales, that's the time where I would take that search term and I would add it as a negative keyword, okay? For non-e-commerce businesses where you're generating leads basically, and then you got to call them to make a sale or whatever, if your search term has no conversions, the search terms had over 1,000 clicks, or 100 clicks, not 1,000, that's the time when I would take that search term and add it as a negative keyword. Why? Because it's enough data to kind of pretty well tell it's not likely that term in and itself is going to be profitable to you in the long run, even though Google can test it out a lot more, find the portion of the traffic within that search term that's profitable. It's likely not to net, too much revenue for you, and it's certainly going to waste a lot. So at least in our case, we're going to block it. But in the rest of the time, when you go into the search terms report and you see a search term that's had 20 clicks, how do you know to add it as a negative or not? You use that aggregate method where you take part of the keyword, maybe there's free in there or something, you search everything with the word free, identify what the return on that is. If you've had 1,000 clicks and no sales from any search phrase with that single word in it, then you're going to block and add negative keywords for every search phrase that has that word in it. And that's the best way to decide, is that negative keyword going to be worth it for you to add or not, given that you should be very careful whether or not you add negative keywords to your account or not. And then obviously for e-commerce, 100 clicks or more with that. Before I go and explain this a bit further here, if you haven't taken time to subscribe to this channel yet, you should, because all the information that you need to be able to make money with online ads on Google, Facebook, and the like, I talk about in detail or in depth on this channel, given it, this is all I do at our firm all day, is just do ad strategy. I spend 40 hours a week doing ad strategy for our clients, dozens of ad accounts that I'm responsible doing the strategy on. And I spend my weekends talking about what I found during the week. That's excellent information to have and to use, but given that most of the other people on YouTube and online, they don't actually manage any ads themselves anymore. They run a firm, they don't manage ads themselves anymore. They run a couple campaigns, it's not enough experience. I don't know of anybody else that does this like I do. Work 70 hours a week to bring you this information. So if you're going to learn from anybody, subscribe to this channel first. So go ahead and do that if you haven't already. Truly, it'll be the best thing for your company, itself, or career. Beyond that, also, I have a great blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog. That blog has step-by-step instructions to use the strategies we're using at our firm to guarantee results, with screenshots, with everything you need to use them. So if you like the channel, you're going to like that blog as well, given it's the same material, but more in detail and laid out for you better there. So check that out as well. If you have any questions about negative keywords or any ad-related question, you can always let me know in the comment section. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or a comment on this channel, usually within 24 hours time. Further into what I was mentioning here, for e-commerce companies, you're going to be super conservative about the negatives you're adding. Basically, what I would just say in general, don't add negatives unless it's totally irrelevant to your niche, or you've got a search term that's had over 1,000 clicks and no sales, or you're able to identify a single word that you then search for every phrase with that single word in it, and then you decide if the negative should be added, doing that particular strategy I talked about before. If you're non-e-commerce though, if you're not getting a great return, then I'm going to be going ahead and adding negative keywords that are inside my niche, because it generally will take that just to make money, particularly if you're using broad match keywords, but even with phrase match, okay? For instance, we had a company who does epoxy flooring services. So, a company that comes in and makes your floor, put a epoxy floor coating on the floor, also resurfacing, that kind of thing. And that particular space, even though it's not a B2B market, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, which in that niche, you have to add lots of negative keywords, or niches like that, I should say. We basically found out that we can't actually even target any, exact match keywords were the best, but we weren't able to scale far enough. But with phrase match, pretty much, unless they're typing in the exact thing that's in the keyword, campaigns were going to be unprofitable targeting the phrase match version of our keywords without aggressive negative keywords that we added to the account. Like literally every day going into the search terms report, finding all the phrases that didn't match our keyword exactly and adding them as negatives. Why? Because in that type of niche, which in a lot of niches are like this, a lot of people are looking for information. They want to know how to do epoxy floors, how to do it themselves, paints to buy, epoxy paint reviews, all this stuff. So you could just think short term and only use exact match. And for that matter, you usually pretty much don't have to add too many negative keywords, even though you will still always have to add some. But you could try to go after the other half of the business out there that's you could get by using phrase match and then adding a metric ton of negative keywords to your account to shape your account and make sure you're only getting stuff that's close to your keywords, not in general people that are looking for information, people looking for competitor stuff, and get your account in shape that way. given that in a lot of different service markets, you will get tons of clicks from competitor terms. Legal, like what I was talking about before, that's like the number one way you waste money, is not blocking all the competitor terms. If you're in a big niche like plumbing, it's another space where literally if you're doing phrase match keywords, you can get 60, 70, 80% of your budget just going to having your ad show up for competitor terms, of which sometimes it will work. Most of the time it won't work, and it'll be a net negative ROI for you, given most people are going to call after not reading your ad, not reading your website, and then just calling and realizing you're not the competitor. So in that case, you got to add a lot of negative keywords. So in non-e-commerce, i.e., services, basically, you are going to need to add lots of negative keywords and within your niche to shape what your ad shows up for. So it's literally only commercial searches. And when you're talking about B2B markets where you're selling to businesses itself, selling services to businesses, forget about, anything else besides doing exact match keywords. And then on top of that, having to add lots of negative keywords. And then on top of that, we want our terms to be like, for instance, if we're doing outsourced CFO services, outsourced CFO company, outsourced CFO service, outsourced CFO firms. Why? Because those are the actual buying searches that matter. There's way too many people searching for outsourced CFO to know what the hell it is, or people looking to go to school for it or whatever, that the only way to make the ads work in a market like that is to add tons of negative keywords so that the ads, even though they're an exact match, will only show up for people typing in firms, companies, services, agencies, blah, 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 with commercial intent, okay? So depending on what your niche you're in, really, that'll dictate how aggressive you go with your negative keywords. Whether it's e-commerce and you're gonna go a light, sprinkling of negative keywords, or non-e-commerce, but you're at least not doing B2B selling to businesses, you're gonna go heavy with the negatives, somewhat middle ground. Whereas if you're doing B2B services, you're gonna go super aggressive with negative keywords because you have to be able to make a profit. So the simple answer to all this, just to clarify or summarize this, is the more negative keywords it takes to be profitable, the more you add. And e-commerce, it takes the least to make money, to make a profit after all your expenses. B2B, it takes the most, and B2C services takes, somewhere in the middle. As a side, by the way, it's particularly if you're in a market like B2B services, like I was mentioning before, if you're not, at least when you start out running your campaign, like the first 30 to 90 days, if you're not in your campaigns daily adding negatives in there, like I was talking about earlier, your ads are not going to make money. You're going to piss away thousands and thousands of dollars. It makes no sense if you can't personally do that to just ignore it. And this is what we do for clients that are agencies. So there's no situation where you save money not adding all those negatives and on that kind of daily basis on top of it. So you hire somebody to do it for you that knows what the hell they're doing. And for that matter, the negative keywords are actually the decider between great results and average to bad results on a lot of accounts. Why? Because you got to intelligently think about whether to add a negative or not on an account, given that adding too many is going to block your keywords and adding not enough is going to blow your budget out of the water. So, and there's a lot of keywords where it's not obvious. Yeah, if you're targeting, selling bowling balls and someone searches for clown shoes, you add the negative. But what if it is, Johnson bowling balls or whatever, a competitor term? Do you block it? Do you not block it? And somebody with low experience, they're just going to block that. Whereas a lot of times that keyword would be profitable, at least in the e-commerce world. So you got to have a lot of experience to know what you should add, what you shouldn't add for the type of business that you are in, and also doing statistical analysis on the data you have, like I was talking about before, either on an aggregate basis or on an individual basis, in order to make it work right. So if you don't want to do that work for yourself, reach out to me at guaranteedppc.com and we'll do the work for you and we'll guarantee you results. We'll make sure what we're doing gets you more results on your ads. That is an increase in profit before we take a fee on our end. We're the only agency who will promise that to you out there. I promise you, they're not out there. I've checked around. Furthermore, if we've worked in your niche market before, we can sell you the winning ad templates that work for your market, as well as campaign templates and landing page templates if it applies, where you can just copy paste that into your account that where we operated in a different city or different country that you're in, use it there, and you get the same results that we got in a different area for yourself for a one-time fee to get the template, to get access to the template. We have worked in over 100 different niche markets in the last decade plus of running this firm now. So the chances are quite high. We've already got the template you're looking for. At the very least, you should reach out to us and find out what we got in terms of templates and what results we got. These templates are as good as gold in terms of even just starting a new business from scratch. You could know nothing about tree services, throw up a campaign template where we have for that we've ran ads in that space for years to get rock bottom cost per lead in that market and sub out all the work and make money. You don't even have to know anything about tree service. You just agree to get 10% of the job revenue from the person you sub it out to, and you're done, literally speaking. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me at guaranteedppc.com. I also do coaching consulting now. I've had people that reach out to me and they say, hey, Corey, I don't know how to get unstuck from where we're at. We can't get ahead. Our profit stuck where it's at. Our revenue stuck where it's at. What's wrong with our ads? Why can't we do this? And I'll come in and I'll look at everything from the website to the sales process to everything and tell you what the real bottleneck is, whether it is the ad, whether it's the targeting, and let you know how to move forward, given I've done this for 20 years now altogether, identifying where these bottlenecks are and continuously do it at our firm every day. So if you want that kind of advice, you can reach out to me at my firm and book a call with me as well. But with that, what I was saying here, if to sum everything up, kind of also what I was talking about before, if you are not getting positive ROI, the easiest way to get ROI, other than pausing certain keywords, which that only gets you so far, you pause all the grossly underperforming keywords itself, you add negative keywords. The negative keywords truly is where the money is made, and that separates the great from the average, like I was talking about before. So if you're short on cash and you don't have time to wait for the algorithm to adjust and only have your ad show up for part of the keyword traffic that you're showing up for now on a keyword by keyword basis, you got to go and you got to add negative keyword. The question is, which ones you're going to add and how much and how often? And that part is, that's an art to do it. I talked about what to do in this video, but still I can't tell you everything. Just know adding the negative keywords can always increase the ROI. Short term, if you want a boost in your ROI, you have to add more. If you're okay with your ROI, I would tend to add less, because if it's not broken, don't fix it, that type of thing. But also, what is not working quite as well, Google's algorithm is going to adjust for that over the long run, and you're going to make more money in the long run because you held out. If you don't have enough clicks on a search term to decide to add it as a negative or not, which is where you typically get your ideas for negative keywords, then you're going to look at an aggregate level, what that keywords like it have done for you in the past, like I mentioned before, and go that route with it. The quicker the return you need, the more aggressively you need to add the negative keywords and the less your return is. Because I get it. Most people don't have $250,000 to start up their business at the beginning or campaign. So you got to be smart about things and you got to add negative keywords more quickly. All right. That all said, what I like to do, just to also give you a quick other tip about negative keywords, is I like to separate the negative keywords out to info terms. So people looking for information, people looking for competitor terms, people looking, that is, if you know for sure you want to block those right now, or want to block them because you're not getting the return you want right now to shore the ROI up, and general negative keywords that aren't fitting into one of the first two categories there. So what you could do is you can aggressively add negative keywords at the beginning to get your return on investment up so where it's positive for your business. So you're not going to run out of money before you get to the final stage with running these ads where all the real money is. And then you can later on remove negative keywords to kind of give the campaign more room to breathe and scale again. And when you separate out your negative keywords into 3 negative keyword lists like that, later on you can just remove the competitor negative keywords, within 5 minutes there, and let the campaign starting to test all the competitor keywords, if that makes sense. Which in an e-commerce space, you typically want to target them. But not only that, what I'm going to do, even for non-e-commerce, I'm going to set up a competitor campaign targeting the competitor terms later on to try to scale the results and get that to work. We'll have the competitor campaign set up to where it's only spending, let's say, 5% of the overall what our account as a whole spending, and we'll not have the negative competitor keywords applied to that campaign, and we'll let it run for 6 or so months for the algorithm to find out how to make that work, what portion of that traffic will work for us, and then we'll now have another campaign that brings in revenue to our business on an ongoing basis. So in other words, ultimately you add them, the negative keyword list makes it easier to remove later on. Or you can have 2 negative keyword lists, ones that are grossly not related to your business, one that's in the middle. And then later on, you just remove this one that's in the middle and try to get the algorithm, retest all those terms. And because you have a lot more data racked up in your account by then, it'll run those terms more efficiently at that stage when you do turn them back on. But you also have runway to get to where Google can run the proper testing on them to where you can make them profitable. You do have 6 months to run those terms at a loss because you're already making so much money over here on these other terms. So that's another general piece of advice I could give you there as it comes to, how aggressively to add negative keywords. But always the less, the better. If you're getting a great ROI, I'm tending to add less. Just know that up front, because that's going to not hamper the long-term results you can get with Google Ads. You want every dollar of profit you can get out of Google Ads, as long as you can afford short-term to not, have to be so aggressive with your negative keywords. Even though, and given that even if you had millions to get your campaign started, you would still want to add some negative keywords where it really is, your account's really bleeding. And that's where this stuff here that I mentioned before comes in. I have a fantastic idea for you though. If you want the best results out of ads you could possibly get, I can tell you for a fact, the best way for you to get that would be to reach out to our agency and talk to me about partnering with us outright, not hiring us, but partnering with us. What we do with some other companies so far, which we can give you the references on these companies, they're making millions of dollars a year partnering with us. What we do, if you've got a great product or service that we know will sell well with ads, and you don't have a great ad program, or an average one, we'll even say, we'll come forward and invest all our agency's time in your ads. We'll also throw you some ad money to get the ads scaling again, or scaling in general. And we'll agree that if we make you money, at least XY% of what we make goes back into more ad spend, and we'll work for free at the beginning. In exchange for the more we raise your sales as a company, the more we make in terms of a percentage share of your revenue. So we'll say, we'll throw Mike 50 grand at ad spend at the beginning to get an ad program working for you, and we'll give you free agency services. As long as once your sales go beyond 300 grand a year, like you have already, we get 4% of that growth. So if you're making 600 grand a year over the next year, we get of the 300 difference, we get 4% of that as our cut. And then we keep going. The difference there being that, of course, we're locked into long-term profit of the company. So if you get to 10 million a year, we get 4% of that. We're going to get a massive payday on year 10 with us having invested in your entire marketing system up front. So we make way less in the beginning, but we make way more in the back end. And we know our stuff works. So we want to do that because we make the most money on those type of setups. So if you're interested in working with us in that kind of fashion, where you have less money to invest up front, but you're willing to give a bigger portion on the back end, reach out to us and talk to us about it. Of course, we generally like to work with companies that have revenue already coming in. That way we know the product or service works. People will want it at least. But other than that, you can only have a few, like 100K a year in revenue, and we can take you on as well. We've done that. So with that said, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Remember when I said negative keywords was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.